This is my life on the road, and the things I've seen while hauling down endless stretches of blacktop have made me question not only my sanity, but the world itself. I'm telling you right now. If you think the highway is just about asphalt, fuel, and long, lonely nights, then you have no idea what hides in the dark edges. Out there, between towns, where the lights fade out and the silence is thicker than fog. I've been driving for decades, and I've seen things that'll make you check your mirrors twice the next time you pass a lonely mile marker at night. And I'm starting with the night that changed me forever. The one that hooked me into this cursed ride of horrors. The night that made me realize the highway is alive. And it's alive with things that aren't human. It was back in the early 2000s. I just picked up a load in Texas, heading east into Louisiana. It was one of those humid nights where the air feels heavy, like you're breathing through wet cloth. The road was empty except for me, the glow of my dashboard, and static, mixed with faint country music coming from my radio. And then it hit me. That itch in the back of my neck. The one you get when you know something's not right. After years of driving, that itch has never lied to me, so I'm cruising down this 2-lane highway. No cars, no signs of life. Just swamp on both sides and the occasional reflector catching my headlights. That's when I see it. A figure standing right in the middle of the road. At first I thought maybe it was a deer, or some drunk who'd wandered out there, but the closer I got, the more wrong it looked. It was tall, too tall to be a man, thin like a pole, its head tilted to the side like it was listening. I hit the air horn, blasting that deep trucker roar. But that thing didn't move, not an inch, and I swear to you, my lights passed right through it. Like smoke, I slammed the brakes hard. My rig shuddered and screamed, but when I stopped, there was nothing on the road ahead of me. Just empty asphalt stretching into forever, and silence so thick I could hear my own heart hammering in my ears. Now I'm not the kind of guy to spook easy. I've seen bad wrecks. I've seen fights at truck stops. I've even seen men die on the side of the road. But this was different. My whole body was shaking like the air itself had teeth. I told myself maybe it was fog. Maybe it was the swamp messing with my vision. But then I saw the handprints, smudged along the side of my trailer. Long, streaky handprints, like someone had dragged their palms across the metal. And here's the kicker. They were wet, not like mud, not like grease, wet like swamp water. And the smell that hit me? Rot. The kind of stink you get when something's been dead and soaked in water for days. I felt bile rise in my throat. I backed up fast, scanning the road. But there was nobody there. Nothing around except the croaking of frogs and the distant splash of something moving in the water. I climbed back in that truck and locked the doors. I didn't stop until I reached a truck stop 2 towns over. And when I got there, my trailer was bone dry. No handprints, no smell, like it had never happened. But my knuckles were white from gripping the wheel, and my shirt was soaked in sweat. I sat in that lot shaking, staring at my mirrors, half expecting to see that thin figure standing under the lights. But there was nothing, just the quiet hum of other trucks parked for the night. That was only the first of many nights where the road showed me things it wasn't supposed to show me. I learned then that the highway is never empty. There are things that ride the night, waiting for drivers like me. Drivers who are too tired, too alone, and too far from help to resist their pull. And I've got plenty more to tell you. Like the time I picked up a hitchhiker who wasn't alive, or the diner that vanished after I stopped for pie, or the convoy of trucks that passed me with no drivers behind the wheel. I'll tell you every damn one of them. Because if you're gonna listen, you might as well know the truth. The truth is this. The road takes as much as it gives. It feeds on loneliness, on fear, on the souls of men who think they're tougher than the dark. Now the first real nightmare after that swamp figure came 2 months later. On a stretch of highway in New Mexico. Out there, the desert can stretch forever. The sky feels like it's pressing down on you. I'd been driving 14 hours straight, too stubborn to pull over because I wanted to make delivery by dawn. My eyes were burning, but I kept going. Then out of nowhere, I see headlights behind me. Way too close, and they stay there. Riding my bumper for miles, I got pissed thinking it was some jerk messing with me. So I sped up. They matched me. I slowed down. They slowed down. I flicked my taillights. They flashed theirs right back at me. Finally, I pulled onto the shoulder to let them pass. But the car didn't go around me. It just stopped, right behind me. And then the lights cut out. I grabbed my flashlight and my bat. thinking this was some highway robbery about to happen. But when I shined that beam back there, the car was gone. Just gone. No tracks, no dust, no nothing. But the smell of burning rubber hung in the night air, and when I checked my trailer again, I found something carved into the dirt stuck to the back doors. A single word, written clear as day, "Leave, I swear to you, friend." I didn't stop that night until I was 3 states over, and this is just the beginning. I can go deeper into every cursed mile marker, haunted diner, and ghost hitchhiker I've met. If you're ready to keep listening, because what I'm telling you isn't just story, it's survival. For anyone who dares to drive alone, where the road swallows sound and the night has eyes. So now, let me tell you about the night I met the girl on Route 79. The girl who should have been dead 20 years before I ever rolled through that stretch of road. Now, Route 79 is one of those highways that don't look like much in the daylight. Just flat land and scrub brush and the occasional gas station with flickering lights. But at night it changes. The air feels heavier. The silence isn't silence at all. It's like the whole world is holding its breath. I was running a load through there back in '04. It was late, probably close to 2 in the morning. The kind of hour when your eyelids weigh a ton and your mind starts playing tricks on you. I had the window cracked for air, and the hum of the tires was steady when I spotted her. She was standing on the shoulder just up ahead. A girl, young, couldn't have been more than 19 or 20, wearing a light dress that looked out of place in the chill. She had one arm raised, like she was trying to wave me down. Now I know what you're thinking. Hitchhiker. Nothing new out here. And I've picked a few up in my day, but something about this one hit me wrong. Her dress wasn't just light. It was old-fashioned, like something out of the 70s, and her skin was pale, too pale, like the moonlight itself was soaking into her. I slowed down anyway because, hell, I'm human, and it's hard to pass by a girl all alone on the side of the road at that hour. I rolled up slow, leaned over, and cracked the passenger door. She climbed in without a word, sat down real gentle, smoothed her dress out across her knees. I glanced at her, waiting for her to speak. But she just stared straight ahead at the windshield, eyes wide and unblinking. After a long minute, I said, "Evening, miss. You okay out here all alone?" She turned her head just a fraction and gave me the smallest smile. "Could you take me home?" she whispered. Her voice was soft, too soft, like she was speaking through glass. Now I'm gripping the wheel, because something about the way she said it froze me up. But I nodded and asked where she lived. She lifted one hand and pointed down the road. "Just a little further," she said, so I drove. And every so often I'd glance at her, and every time I did she was looking out the window like she was searching for something. Her hands were folded in her lap. Still. Too still. And the air inside the cab felt colder than outside. My breath fogged the glass. I remember thinking the heater must have cut out, but when I checked the vents, the air was blowing hot. We went on like that for maybe 15 minutes. Then she lifted her hand again and pointed at a dirt road branching off the highway. I slowed, made the turn, and the gravel crunched under my tires. There was nothing out there. No lights, no houses, just black fields stretching forever. "Here," she whispered. "This is my road." I felt every hair on my arms rise. But I drove another quarter-mile until I saw it. A small wooden house sitting crooked at the edge of the trees. Looked abandoned. Windows broken. Porch sagging. No lights. No car. Nothing. I eased to a stop and turned to her. She was already reaching for the handle, and before I could say a word, she slipped out of the cab and started walking toward that house. Bare feet touching gravel without a sound. I leaned across the seat and called after her. But she didn't turn back. She just kept walking until she reached the porch. And then she was gone. I don't mean she stepped inside. I mean, 1 second she was there in the moonlight, and the next second she vanished. Like smoke, my heart was slamming against my ribs. I put that truck in gear so fast I nearly stripped it, spun the wheels kicking gravel behind me as I tore back down that dirt road. I didn't stop until I hit the main highway, but here's the part that still makes my skin crawl. A week later, I rolled through the same stretch in daylight. I was curious against my better judgment. So I found that dirt road again, drove down it slow. But when I reached the end, there was no house, no porch, no trees, just open field, like the place had never existed. I told another driver about it months later, an old-timer who'd been running that route since the 70s. He just stared at me for a long moment, then shook his head. Said a girl had been killed on that stretch in '79, hitchhiking home from a dance. Car hit her and left her there. Folks say she still tries to catch a ride, still tries to find her way home. And brother, I swear on my rig that I drove her ghost to that house. A house that wasn't even there anymore. Now that was Route 79. But it wasn't the last time I carried something in my cab that shouldn't have been there. The road has a way of testing you, seeing how much you'll take before you break. Some nights it whispers, some nights it screams, and some nights it puts a passenger in your seat and waits to see what you'll do. Let me tell you about the diner, the one that only appears when the night is at its darkest, and the pie they served me that I swear was made for the dead, not the living. It was back in '06. I was running through Tennessee, hauling a load of dry goods. It was one of those nights where the road feels endless. My eyelids were heavy and my back ached. I remember thinking I needed a break, a place to stretch my legs and grab some food. I hadn't eaten in nearly 10 hours. My stomach was growling so bad it felt like an animal trapped inside me. I saw the sign first. A big neon arrow pointing off the highway. It just said diner in red letters. The thing about it was, I'd driven that stretch a dozen times before, and I'd never once seen a diner sign there. But exhaustion makes you overlook things, so I figured maybe I'd just missed it before. I took the exit and rolled down a 2-lane road for about a mile before the glow of fluorescent lights came into view. The diner sat there by itself, no cars in the lot except one rusted old pickup. The sign buzzed and flickered, throwing red light across the cracked asphalt. The building itself looked old, like it had been there since the '50s. Chrome siding, big glass windows, and a door with a bell above it. I parked my rig along the edge of the lot and climbed out. The air smelled strange. Not bad exactly, but stale. Like air that hadn't moved in a long time. I brushed it off and walked inside. The bell over the door jingled. And I'll tell you what, brother, I swear for a second it felt like stepping back in time. The place was spotless, but in that old-fashioned way. Red leather booths, shiny counters, black and white tile floor, a jukebox in the corner humming faint static. There was only one waitress. She stood behind the counter with a coffee pot in hand. Her hair was up in a beehive style like women wore in the '60s. And her uniform was crisp white with a pink apron. She smiled at me like she'd been waiting all night. "Sit anywhere you like, hun," she said. I slid into a booth. She came over with a menu and a cup of steaming coffee before I even asked. I noticed her hands when she set it down. Perfectly clean but pale, almost too pale, and cold when her fingers brushed mine. I asked what she recommended. She said the pie. No hesitation. Just the pie. Now, I don't usually go for sweets on the road, but the way she said it, I figured why not. I ordered a slice of apple pie. She nodded, went back to the counter, and returned with a plate. Brother, that pie was the best thing I ever tasted. Warm, spiced just right, crust flaky like it had been baked fresh that minute. I devoured it in no time flat, washed it down with the coffee, which was strong and smooth. But while I ate, I kept noticing something. The jukebox wasn't playing any music, just that faint static hum. And the lights overhead flickered like candles instead of fluorescence. And though I should have felt better with food in my belly, I started feeling colder, heavier. Like gravity itself was stronger in that diner. I looked around, trying to shake it. That's when I realized something. I was the only customer. Nobody came in, nobody left. The pickup outside never moved. And the whole time I sat there, the waitress never once blinked. Not once. I finished the pie and tried to stand, but my legs felt weak. Like I'd been sitting for hours. My watch said 20 minutes. My body said 5 hours. I stumbled to the counter to pay. The waitress was waiting. Same smile, same cold eyes. "No charge," she said. "You've already paid." That froze me. I asked her what she meant. She just tilted her head and said, "Don't worry. You'll be back." I didn't argue. I just pushed through the door, the bell jangling, and headed for my rig. The night air hit me like a slap. I climbed into the cab, started the engine, and looked back at the diner one last time. But there was nothing there. No neon sign, no glowing windows, no chrome siding. Just an empty lot, cracked asphalt covered in weeds. I nearly drove my rig into a ditch staring at that spot in the mirror. My hands were trembling on the wheel. My stomach churned like I'd swallowed ice. And here's the part that really did me in. Hours later, when I stopped at a real truck stop down the road, I checked my cab. On the passenger seat was the empty pie plate, clean, white ceramic, with a single fork resting on top. I kept it for years, hidden in a box in the back of my cab. Until one day it just wasn't there anymore. Now I've heard other drivers whisper about diners that appear where they shouldn't, places that serve you something you can't forget. Some say it's a trap. Some say it's a reward for those who survive the night. I don't know what to believe. I just know I ate food that wasn't meant for me. And every so often, late at night when I'm tired and hungry, I swear I taste that pie again. Cinnamon apple sugar. Sweet as sin. That was the diner. But the road didn't let me rest after that. It kept throwing more at me. The night I was chased by headlights that belonged to no car. The convoy of driverless trucks rolling in silence. And the worst of them all, the voice that came through my CB radio calling my name, even though nobody alive should have known it. And if you think I'm kidding, brother, just wait. Because the CB story? That one nearly broke me. And it started with a voice that wasn't mine, echoing out of static, saying words I'll never forget. It was winter of '08. I was pushing through Oklahoma, snow flurries blowing sideways across the highway. It was late, near midnight, the kind of night where the world feels empty. No cars, no headlights, just my rig humming and the CB hissing with low static. I had it tuned in just for company. Sometimes you hear voices even if nobody's close by, just chatter bouncing from miles away. I was sipping cold coffee when I heard it. A voice crackling through the static. At first I thought it was some driver joking around. But then I realized the voice was saying my name. Clear as day. Tom. Now I don't advertise my name on the CB. I use a handle like everyone else. And I sure as hell didn't recognize the voice. It was deep, slow, almost like someone was whispering in my ear through the speaker. Tom, it said again. You should stop. My skin crawled. I grabbed the mic and asked who it was. No answer, just more static. Then, soft as a sigh. Pull over. We're waiting. I slammed the mic down and shook my head. Told myself it was some punk playing games. But then the CB hissed again and the voice said something that froze the blood in my veins. It said my mother's name. And she'd been dead for 5 years. I damn near drove into the ditch. My hands were slick with sweat on the wheel. I killed the CB, flipped the switch off, and the cab went quiet except for the drone of the engine. I told myself it was over. Just a prank. But not even 5 minutes later, the CB lit up again, even though I'd shut it off. The speaker glowed red, static roared, and then her voice came through, my mother's voice, clear as if she was sitting in the seat beside me. Tommy, she said the way she used to when I was a boy. Why are you still driving? You need to come home. I swear to you I nearly lost control. My vision blurred with tears. I knew that voice. It wasn't some recording. It wasn't a trick. It was her. And yet it couldn't be. I pulled the rig onto the shoulder, heart hammering, and just sat there staring at the dark. The CB crackled again, softer this time. Come with us, it whispered. We're waiting just ahead. Now here's where it gets worse. Because just then I looked up into my mirrors and saw headlights behind me. Not one set, dozens. A convoy stretching back into the black, silent. No engines. No movement except the glow. I wiped my eyes, slammed the truck into gear, and floored it. My rig roared back onto the highway and the speedometer climbed higher than I liked. But I didn't care. I had to get away. The headlights followed, closing in, bright as the sun, until I couldn't see anything in my mirrors but light. And then, nothing. Just like that, they were gone. Vanished. The CB went dark. The road stretched empty again, and I was alone. I didn't stop until dawn broke, and I pulled into a truck stop shaking so bad I could barely hand the cashier my money for a fresh cup of coffee. For weeks after that, every time I turned on the CB, I expected to hear her voice. Sometimes I did hear whispers in the static, words I couldn't quite make out. My own name, laughter, but I never left that CB running overnight again. Not once. And here's the part that keeps me awake. A year later, another driver I know, old Jim, who ran the same routes I did, told me he heard a woman calling his name through the CB one night outside Oklahoma City. He said it was his sister's voice, and she'd been gone 10 years. I don't know what rides the airwaves out there in the dark. But it ain't just truckers swapping jokes and weather reports. Sometimes it's something else, something that knows who you are, something that wants you to listen. That was the CB night. And brother, it nearly broke me. But the road wasn't finished with me yet. Because not long after that, I ran into something worse. A stretch of highway where time itself didn't work right. Where I drove for hours without moving an inch. And when I finally came out the other side, the world didn't look the same. It was around 2 in the morning. I was hauling refrigerated freight through the Nevada desert. Middle of nowhere. No lights, no exits, just endless black stretching in all directions. My radio was quiet, my phone had no service, and my headlights carved a narrow path through the dark. That stretch of road has always felt wrong to me. Too empty, like it's not part of the same world. I was listening to the hum of my tires when I glanced at the dash clock. 2:14 a.m., fine. I checked again a while later, and it still read 2:14. No big deal, I thought. Maybe I blinked too fast. I kept driving. 10 minutes later, still 2:14. Now that rattled me. I tapped the glass, reset the dash. Nothing. My wristwatch said 2:14 too. I even grabbed my phone. Dead screen. When I powered it on again, 2:14. Everything frozen. I figured maybe I was just tired. Needed caffeine. So I told myself the next exit I'd stop. Only problem was the next exit never came. I drove for what felt like an hour, maybe more, and not a single sign, not a single overpass, nothing. Just the same 2-lane blacktop unspooling beneath my wheels, endless and empty. Then I noticed something else. The odometer wasn't moving either. I had been pressing the gas the whole time, cruising around 65, but the numbers hadn't budged. I wasn't putting on any miles. I slowed down, looked out the window, and my stomach dropped, because the stars above me weren't moving, not one. I don't know if you've ever stared long enough at the night sky to notice, but usually there's a drift, a shift. The earth moves and the stars slide. But here, they were painted still. I started to panic. Slammed my fist on the steering wheel. Tried to shake myself awake, thinking maybe I'd dozed off. But the truck was humming steady. The wheel was solid. The road kept stretching. And then came the worst part. A figure appeared ahead, right in my lane. At first just a shadow, but as I bore down it took shape. A man, tall, thin, dressed in what looked like old clothes. A long coat, wide-brimmed hat. He didn't move. Didn't flinch. Just stood there waiting. I laid on the horn. Screeched the brakes, but he didn't budge. And right before I hit him, the lights flickered. And he was gone. Just gone. Like smoke. I sat there in the middle of that frozen highway, breathing hard, every hair on my body standing up. And then, without warning, everything snapped back. The clock jumped to 3:47. My odometer rolled forward. The stars started crawling again. The world moved. I looked around, half expecting the man to still be standing by the road. But there was nothing, just the desert, silent, cold. When I finally made it to the next truck stop, I stumbled inside, pale as death. The cashier gave me a weird look and asked if I was all right. I checked the receipt when I paid for coffee. It said 7:13 a.m., which didn't make sense because by my reckoning, I'd only been driving for a few hours. To this day, I don't know what happened. Was I trapped in some kind of loop? Did I slip sideways out of time for a while? And who was that man waiting for me in the road? I've heard whispers from other drivers, you know. Stories of lost hours, broken clocks, highways that stretch longer than they should. Some even say there are roads that lead you out of this world if you drive too far. All I know is I don't trust that stretch anymore. If I see it on my route, I'll take the long way around. 'Cause time is one thing you don't mess with. When the clock stops, brother, you're not just lost, you might never come back. And yet, that wasn't the worst of it. Because the very next run I took led me into something darker. Not a broken clock, not a haunted CB. This one was flesh and blood. A roadside diner where the people inside weren't people at all. So I was hauling through Arkansas, this time middle of the week-long stretch of road through pine woods and swamp low mist crawling over the ditches, the kind that makes your high beams bounce white walls of light back at you and you feel boxed. In no other rigs out there, just me and the sound of diesel pulling steady around midnight, my stomach started growling. I'd been on the road close to 10 hours and figured I needed food before I nodded off. That's when I saw the neon glow up. A head faint at first, then clearer. Diner 24 hours flickering in red and green old school kind of sign, with half the bulbs burned out. I hadn't seen a billboard for it, no exit sign. Nothing, but there it was, like it had been waiting for me. I pulled. In gravel crunching under my tires, the place looked frozen in time. Chrome siding, big front windows, jukebox glow inside a couple cars parked out front. Though they looked old, rust on the hoods and plates that didn't look right, couldn't make them out properly. I cut the engine, and the silence hit me heavy. Inside it smelled like old grease and coffee, the kind of smell that usually comforts a driver, but this time it hit sour in my gut. There were a few folks sitting at the counter, all dressed in clothes that didn't fit the year, one man in suspenders, one woman in a floral dress, like straight out of the 50s. None of them turned their heads when I walked in, just sat stiff, staring ahead. A waitress came over and, brother, I swear, I'll never forget her eyes, big wide, too wide, pupils black as pitch, no light in them. She smiled with lips too red and teeth that looked just a little too sharp. Her voice was soft, though. "Welcome, hun, you want coffee?" I nodded, sat in a booth, and she poured black liquid steaming, but it didn't smell like coffee, more like burnt plastic. I pushed it aside when she wasn't looking. She handed me a menu, laminated edges, cracked and peeling. I opened it up, and the words swam. Nothing made sense. Scrambled letters like someone had tried to copy a menu but didn't know the language. Then I realized the whole diner had gone silent. No clinking forks, no shifting stools. The folks at the counter had all turned their heads in unison to look at me, their eyes the same flat black as the waitress. No blinking, no breathing. I froze, heart hammering. I muttered something about using the restroom, stood up, and that's when I noticed in the reflection of the front window their faces didn't match. What I saw when I turned around in the glass, they looked wrong. Stretched mouths, skin sagging like wax melting off a frame. I didn't think. I just bolted out the door, sprinted for my rig, jumped inside and fired it up, tires squealing on the gravel. As I pulled out, I glanced in the side mirror, and the whole diner was gone, just trees and fog, like it had never been there at all. No neon sign, no cars, nothing. When I finally stopped hours later at a real truck stop with real people, I sat there, shaking hands still tight on the wheel. A fellow driver asked me if I was okay. I just nodded, but deep down, I knew I'd stepped into something that wasn't supposed to exist, a place that maybe opens up only for certain travelers. And brother, I'll tell you this. After that night, I started carrying a small cooler in my cab stocked with sandwiches, jerky, and coffee, because I'll be damned if I ever stop at some random glowing diner in the woods again. But as bad as that was, it still wasn't the darkest road I ever rolled down, because what came next nearly ended me for good, a stretch of highway where the dead themselves tried to ride with me. I had a flatbed load that night, steel beams chained tight heavy enough that I had to crawl slow on the grades I'd been driving through the mist for hours. When I started feeling that prickling on the back of my neck, the sense you get when someone's watching, I glanced in my side mirrors and swear I saw shapes moving in the fog. Not headlights, not tail lights, just shadows pacing me in the woods, keeping up no matter how slow or fast I went. Then I felt it weight shift in the cab, like someone had just climbed onto the running board. I froze, kept my eyes forward, and heard it, a dull thud against the passenger door. I flicked my eyes over, and there was a hand pressed against the glass, pale gray fingers, long as knives, clawing at the window, leaving trails of condensation. I jerked the wheel, nearly sent the rig off the shoulder, heart slamming in my chest. But that wasn't the end, because when I straightened out, I caught sight in the mirror of figures on the flatbed riding the steel. Beams like they'd hitched a lift, their bodies twisted, thin faces, hollow eyes glowing faint like coals. They weren't strapped down. They were just clinging, floating like the wind couldn't touch them. And yet they didn't fall. One of them crawled toward the cab, slow, deliberate movements like a spider. I floored it, engine, howling gears, straining, but they kept their grip. I grabbed my cross from the dash, muttering a prayer I barely remembered from childhood. And the second I lifted it, the figure on the cab window let out a shriek so loud it rattled my bones and vanished into mist. The ones on the flatbed began to peel off too, one by one dropping into fog that swallowed them whole until the weight in my mirrors was gone. I didn't. Stopped driving till I saw the lights of Charleston in the distance and pulled into a crowded lot with other rigs around. I sat there for an hour, unable to move, just staring at my reflection in the windshield, asking myself what had just tried to board my truck. Since then I've heard other truckers talk about picking up riders. They didn't mean to pick up, some call them hitches from the other side. Lost souls that wander mountain roads looking for a way out. Some say they're not souls at all, but something older. Something that feeds off fear. I don't know what I believe, but I know what I saw, and I know I'll never haul through that route at night again. And yet, brother, even that wasn't the worst, because there was one more. Run where the horror didn't just ride with me. It spoke to me, a voice that came through my CB radio, whispering things it had no way of knowing, things about me that no living soul should have known. I was cutting across Kansas flat land, long stretches of blacktop, no hills, no curves, just endless road, stretching farther than your eyes can take. In the clock said about 1 a.m, and I had the CB on channel 19, just listening to the occasional chatter, most of it local guys jawing about weather or cops. Nothing out of the ordinary when the line suddenly went dead. No static, no noise, just silence, like someone had unplugged the world. I tapped the mic, gave a quick breaker. 19, you got Big Ray. Here, running eastbound. Nothing came back. I leaned forward, frowning, and then I heard it, faint at first. A whisper, low, almost like wind leaking through a crack, except it was words, my name whispered. Real slow. Big Ray. I froze, stared at the speaker, like it might sprout teeth. Then the whisper came again, this time louder. Big Ray, you cannot keep running forever. I dropped the mic, like it had burned me, because no one on that frequency should know my name, not out in the middle of nowhere. The voice went on steady, calm, like a man sitting right in the seat beside me. It started saying things I hadn't told a soul. Private things about my childhood, about mistakes I made years ago, about people I'd wronged, things no living stranger could possibly. No, I tried shutting the unit off, but the voice kept bleeding through, even with the power knob twisted hard left. Even when I yanked the cord clean out, it didn't stop, and then it started laughing, soft at first, then louder until it filled the cab, a dry, brittle sound like bones rattling together. I slammed my fists on the wheel, shouted for it to shut up, but the laughter rolled on like it was feeding on my anger. Finally, I snapped. I grabbed the mic and yelled into it. Who the hell are you? What do you want? The laughter cut short, and the voice whispered clearer than before. You know me. You have always known me. I ride with you. Always. I will ride with you till the end, brother. I tell you, my blood went ice cold. I hurled the mic onto the floor and prayed out loud, just babbling whatever verses came to mind after a while. The cab fell quiet again, just the sound of tires humming on asphalt. And when I dared to glance down at the radio, the cord I had ripped out was still dangling loose. There was no power, no connection, no way it should have worked. When I hit the next truck stop, I ripped that whole CB unit out and tossed it in a dumpster, bought a new one the next day. But even now, every once in a while, late at night, when the road is empty and the air feels too still, I swear I hear a faint whisper leaking out of the speaker. Even when the damn thing is off, just a dry voice reminding me it's still there waiting. And that was the night I stopped trusting radios, brother, because sometimes that voice you hear on the other end isn't another trucker. It isn't help. It's something that wants to climb inside your head and ride shotgun till the day you're gone. But even that nightmare didn't prepare me for what happened next, because the next story isn't about a diner or ghosts or even voices. It's about flesh and blood, about a cult. I stumbled on a forgotten back road, a cult that tried to make me part of whatever twisted ritual they were running out there. In the dark. I was running a load through rural Louisiana swamp country, narrow 2-lane back roads. No shoulders, just trees and water hemming you in on both sides. It was late, maybe 2:30 in the morning. No moon, just heavy clouds, and the smell of rain in the air. The road was slick, and my headlights kept bouncing shadows off the cypress trunks. About 30 miles into the stretch, I saw a light ahead. Not headlights, not tail lights, but fire, a soft orange glow hanging low over the trees as I rounded a bend. I caught sight of it, clear as day, torches lined up along the roadside. Maybe 20 of them, burning bright figures standing beside each one. Hooded figures in long robes, their faces shadowed. I slowed down, heart-hammering, because I couldn't just blow through them. They were blocking both lanes, shoulder to shoulder, torches raised like some medieval parade. They weren't moving, just standing waiting for me. I tapped the horn. Nothing. No flinch. No step back. Just silence and fire. I stopped, dead in the middle of the road. And the second my wheels quit turning, they all raised their free hands, in perfect unison, palms out toward me. I could see their fingers slick with something dark. Maybe paint, maybe blood. I don't know, but it caught the firelight and glistened. Then one figure stepped forward, taller than the rest. His hood dropped back, and I saw his face pale. Eyes wide, mouth stretched in a grin that didn't look human. He pointed at me, and every single one of them started chanting. Low, guttural words I didn't understand, but they rattled my bones. The sound of it filled the cab, like the swamp itself was growling. I knew I had two choices: sit there and pray, or punch the gas and take my chances, so I gritted my teeth, slammed the rig into gear, and floored it. The crowd didn't move at first, but when they realized I wasn't stopping, they split just enough for me to plow through. I clipped at least one, heard a body bounce off the bumper. But when I checked the mirrors, I didn't see anyone down. They were all just standing in the torchlight, watching me roll away, not chasing, not moving, just staring like I had passed some kind of test. I drove white-knuckled till I hit a truck stop an hour later, got out shaking. And when I looked at the front of my rig, I expected dents, blood, something. But there was nothing. No scratch, no smear of paint, just clean steel. Like I hadn't touched a thing. I told another driver about it a week later, and his face went pale. He said he'd heard of that stretch. He called it the Road of Watchers. Said some cult runs rituals out there, been doing it for decades. And if you stop and let them surround you, they don't let you go. I don't know if that's true, but I know this. I'll never take that back road again, because ghosts might scare you, brother. But people with fire in their eyes and a cause in their hearts, they'll cut you down without a second thought. And as bad as that night was, it still wasn't the end of the horrors, because there came a time when I picked up a real hitchhiker on the road, thought I was doing a good deed, thought I was helping a stranded soul. But what I let into my cab that night wasn't just a man. It was something wearing a man's skin, and it rode with me for miles before showing me what it really was. I was running west through Oklahoma, wide open highway stars, clear above the kind of night that almost feels peaceful until it isn't. I spotted him on the shoulder. A tall man in jeans and a jacket, thumb-out backpack at his feet. Nothing strange about that. So I slowed and pulled over. Figured maybe I'd carry him a town or two up the road. He climbed in real slow and gave me a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Thanked me in a low voice that scraped at my ears like gravel in a tin. Can right off. I noticed things that didn't sit right. His clothes were clean, too clean for someone hitching. His boots had no scuff, no dust, no wear at all, and he didn't smell like sweat or road dirt. He smelled like iron, sharp and sour, like blood. Left too long in the sun, I told myself I was just tired. But then he started talking. And that's when my gut really twisted. Because every word out of his mouth was about me. Not small talk. Not asking where I was headed. He told me where I was headed. Told me where I grew up, told me the name of my first dog, details I hadn't shared with anyone in years. I tried to play it cool, asked how he knew all that, and he just grinned, showing teeth too straight, too white, and said, "I've always known you." Ray. I've been waiting for this ride for a long time, brother. I nearly slammed the brakes right there, but something in his eyes locked me in place. Black pits. Not like a person's eyes at all. No shine, no depth. Just void as we rolled. He leaned. Closer, whispered things about the road ahead. How I'd die if I took the next exit. How I'd never see my family again. If I kept ignoring him, his breath cold against my ear like winter air. Even though the cab was warm, I told him to shut up. Gripped. The wheel so hard my knuckles went white, and that's when he laughed. Not a chuckle, not a man's laugh, but a sound like glass cracking under pressure. It filled the cab, made the mirrors vibrate. I knew then I had to get rid of him, so I swerved. Hard onto the shoulder, stomped the brakes, and shouted for him to get out. He didn't move, just stared at me, smiling wider, until his jaw looked wrong too wide, like it was stretching beyond bone, and then just like that, he was gone. No sound. No door slam. No body hitting pavement, gone like he'd never been there at all. The passenger seat, empty, backpack gone too. I sat there shaking, staring at the seat, expecting it to move on its own. After a long minute, I pulled back on the highway. Drove till sunrise and didn't dare stop. When I finally parked, I swore an oath right there. No more hitchhikers, not ever, because some of them might not be people at all. Some of them might be waiting for a driver dumb enough to give them a ride. Straight into Helen, brother. If you think that's bad, wait until I tell you about the night I drove through a storm that wasn't a storm at all, a black wall of rain and thunder that followed me for hours. And inside that storm, there were shapes, things pounding at my trailer, things that wanted me off that highway for good. It started just outside Missouri, flat country skies wide open. I saw the clouds stacking high, way off in the distance, lightning flashing inside them like someone was flicking a light bulb. But the radar on my dash showed nothing. Clear skies ahead. No warnings, no alerts. So I figured maybe it was moving the other way. But the closer I got, the darker it became until the stars vanished behind a wall of black. When the first drop hit my windshield, it was thick, too thick. More like oil than water. Smeared across the glass and streaked like tar, I cranked the wipers and they squealed, but the smear wouldn't clear. Then came the wind, hitting the side of the trailer so hard I had to fight to keep from tipping over, and the lightning flashing. Again, but wrong colors. Not white or blue, but red and green, searing against the black clouds. I dropped my speed, kept both hands locked tight on the wheel, and that's when I heard it above the roar of wind, a pounding at the trailer, like fists slamming. Metal over and over, the whole rig shuddering with every blow. I glanced in the mirrors and my stomach knotted because I saw shapes crawling on the trailer roof. Long arms, long fingers slapping the steel, their bodies just shadows against the lightning one. Of them crawled forward until it was right over my cab, and the pounding turned to scratching claws dragging down the metal like nails on a chalkboard. The sound drilled into my skull, and I shouted just to drown it out. Then a face dropped down. In front of the windshield, upside-down eyes, glowing yellow mouth, opening wide, too wide, filled with teeth like broken glass. It slammed against the glass hard enough to crack it. Spiderwebs spreading across the pane. I floored it, engine screaming. Lightning flashing all around me, and the storm seemed to follow wherever I went. No exit, no break in the clouds, just that pounding on my trailer. That face grinning upside down, waiting for me to break. I prayed out loud, every word I could remember. Begged for strength, and suddenly the storm broke just like that. 1 second pounding rain, black sky, red lightning, the next second clear open road, stars overhead, and silence. I pulled over, shaking, climbed out to check the trailer, expecting dents. Scratches, something. But the steel was smooth. Not a single mark. No crack in the windshield either. Like none of it had happened, except I knew it had because I could still smell the air, that sharp metallic stink of ozone and rot, and my ears still rang from the pounding. I rolled slow the rest of the night, staring in the mirrors, half expecting those shapes to come crawling back. But they never did. And when I asked around later, no one else reported a storm. Not a single driver on that stretch had seen what I drove through. So now I ask myself, was it weather? Was it something pulled straight out of the ground below us? Some old thing that rides the wind looking for prey? Or was it a warning, a taste of what's waiting, if you keep rolling? Too long on roads you weren't meant to take, and brother, if that storm shook me, then what came next dug right into my bones, because it wasn't just noise or figures or shadows. It was a road that tried to trap me itself, a stretch of highway that looped back on me again and again until I thought I'd gone mad, a road that didn't want to let me go.